Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast. Have you ever heard the phrase nurses eat their young? Feeding Our Young is more than a podcast, it's a movement. It's a desire to see new nurses of all ages be supported and uplifted by their peers. And it starts with me. It starts with you. So join host Eric Miller, registered nurse of nearly 20 years, an adjunct clinical instructor, and today's honored guest, me, Kanoa Braunger, and be ready to have your life uplifted so you can, in turn, uplift others. Welcome to the Feeding Our Young podcast.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Feeding Our Young podcast. Do I have an incredible honored guest in studio today? Yes, I do. You better believe it. Oh, wait. Kayesa. Why am I saying that? Oh, I know why. Because the amazing human being I have in studio today, who you're going to love to talk to, who I'm excited to talk to and get to know a little better, is the one, the only Kanoa. Kanoa, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing lovely.
I really try not to reach for the cheesy openings, but
No,
that
was really good, actually.
I couldn't resist.
I get a lot of canola jokes, like canola oil jokes. So that is like a new one that I enjoyed.
Yay!
So I liked it.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. All right. Well, then we're off to a good start. We'll just keep it going that way then. So let's just dive right in. Tell us, who are you and where is home for you right now?
I'm Kanoa. I am from Washington, Eastern Washington. I moved around a lot, but I was born at Sacred Heart. Ooh. Yes, and then I ended up working there a little while ago, which was like wonderfully full circle. I was born at Sacred Heart in Spokane, moved around Eastern Washington, and then I went to nursing school in Spokane, and currently I live in New York City.
New York City? No, that's incredible, and we're going to find out a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But so it sounds to me as though you've graduated. So what degrees do you hold, and when did you get them?
Yes, I have a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing with a minor in Human Development that I graduated in December of 2024 from WSU Spokane.
Go Cougs. I love it.
Go Cougs.
Awesome. And so being a relatively recent graduate, what 3 words did you choose to describe nursing school?
Okay, I chose difficult, perseverance, and lifelong were my 3 words.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how any of those really apply, so I can't wait to find out. And then the 3 cruelest questions I could ever ask, and what are the 3 favorite songs you have in life right now?
Oh my gosh. Okay. My 3 favorite songs in life. I have really, really been loving the new Noah Kahan album. And so, oh my gosh, to narrow it down, I would say off the new Noah Kahan album, I'm going to say Doors.
Yep.
And then another song unrelated to Noah Kahan, Lord. I love Lord. I just saw Lord in concert like 6 months ago. I would say The Louvre. And then, oh my gosh, to round out the 3, let's see. From my newest favorite TV show, Heated Rivalry, I'm going to say Mange Tout by Wet Leg has been also on repeat in my home.
Love it.
I don't know if that's for all of life, but that's definitely current faves.
Yeah, and that's why I ask it the way I do, because I feel like that's just, you know what I mean? There's no way I could give you
it's so
3
hard.
or 5 or 10 all-time favorites. No, there's just no way. So that's why we say in this phase of life right now. So speaking of in this phase of life right now, let's first talk about hobbies, because you wanted to talk about that.
Yes.
So what hobbies do you have outside of work?
I have been kind of putting an emphasis on hobbies lately to try and
Nice.
really like feed my soul outside of work. Not that I don't love my job, but I think it's very important. And I'm like wrapping up my nurse residency right now. And
Hmm.
that's another thing that we've talked about in our nurse residency is kind of having things that feed you outside of work and are can be like a stress relief. And so I have been acquiring new hobbies lately. I have absolutely loved.
So hold
So
on, hold on. Let me clarify. Your primary hobby is collecting hobbies.
collecting hobbies is the main
Okay,
hobby, and then
good.
the other hobbies follow along. So even in nursing school, a hobby I picked up during nursing school was sourdough. I have my starter actually just recently died. I will I will make a new one. She was kind of dormant in the fridge, and then mold got to her.
That was
So
it. She gave up
that
the
was
sourdough
it.
ghost.
But my sourdough was the starter sourdough for my friends. I gave some of it to my friends, and then mine's like the mother. So mine was named Dothea. I will recreate her soon, and she will be Dothea Part 2. And then I gave it to my friend, and she called it Dolene. And then she gave some of that to her mom, and her mom calls it Bredna. So it's you can you can pretend it's a person, you can give it a name. It's a very time-consuming hobby, but a lot of it is kind of sitting in the fridge. And
Yeah,
you get the most delicious bread you've ever had out of it.
yeah. And she
So,
lives on. Your original lives
exactly.
on.
Even
I'm
if, but when I moved to New York, I did bring her in the tiniest container you've ever seen as a liquid in my carry-on the flight, and I was like, they're gonna like arrest me, being like, what is this weird that you have in this little container? I made it small enough so that it was like an acceptable liquid size, but she did fly. Rest in peace, Dorothea. She did fly from Washington to New York.
going out the way she wanted, right?
Yes,
Just
exactly.
just having a great time. Oh my gosh. Sorry. And your other hobbies.
And then I have been learning to crochet. Here, I'll show you a crochet piece I made. Um, I made this little hooded scarf.
Oh, that's adorable.
Is this not the cutest thing you've ever seen? So
Sorry,
I
y'all. This is making me wish we did a video podcast,
so
but
I have
no.
been crocheting.
Oh,
And then my newest one that I started maybe like a month or two ago is needlepoint.
yes.
And I had a little cross stitch like kit, and I was cross stitching, and then I was like, let's see what needlepoint has to offer. I am now obsessed with needlepoint. I do it whenever I'm bored. I have a little kit bag. I have like all the accessories, and I love to have accessories for a hobby. So I just love the accoutrement that comes with any new hobby. You got to get the new hooks, you got to get the measuring tapes, you got to get all the thread. And that is, I love shopping too, another
Yeah.
hobby. So then the shopping is just a hobby within the hobby. I get to shop for needlepoint accessories. So crochet, I do feel like you have to kind of focus a little more, especially if you're doing a pattern to like
Yeah.
what it's going to be at the end. Needlepoint, I feel like I could do a lot more mindlessly because it's more like, like paint by number, and you're just doing it with the thread. It's already like colored in for you. So that's a good thing that you can kind of have your hands working and you don't
Yeah.
have to like turn your brain on for it. You can kind of
Yeah.
just do it and
And
get
then
your
you
mind.
have something at the end of it that's beautiful, or you know
Exactly.
what I mean? Like something that you've created that you can display or give to somebody else.
So
That's
that
awesome.
those are my newest hobbies. But if you've got any recommendations for other hobbies, I'm always in the market.
Nope, it's just me and my cross stitching and running. So you've already dabbled in the cross stitching world. Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So let me ask you this now. Let's just dive right into your nursing journey. And the best place to start with any journey is the very beginning. So, Kanoa, how did you end up in nursing?
Oh my gosh. Well, my mom is a nurse, and my mom graduated from SCC when I was about 4 or 5, no, 5 years old. 4 or 5. And I still remember that.
Mm-hmm.
My mom graduated from nursing school, and it was also very funny. She had worked as a LPN at this nursing home in Colfax, which is one place I had lived with the whole moving around. And
Mm-hmm.
then while I was at WSU Pullman before I started nursing school, I also worked at that same nursing home like 20 years later, or a little less than 20 years later. So I remember my mom taking me to work there because there was nowhere else to put me. So I came to work with her. And then I was there working as a CNA and taking care of these patients. So it started with my mom, I'll say,
Yeah.
a long, long time ago. And then when I was getting into college, I really knew I wanted to do healthcare. And I was thinking about going to med school. So I was not, when I first got admitted to WSU, I was not a pre-nursing student. I was a pre-med track, like a math degree. And I kept really second guessing myself. I was like, I don't think, like, what I was really worried about was that I was going to get to the end of this 4 years at the end of this bachelor's degree and have a degree that I didn't really want, because I knew I didn't want like a chem degree or a bio degree. I knew the reason I wanted to do healthcare was to like meet people and be with people in that setting and not do like the back end of stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
obviously I'm so glad there are people that do that. I just knew that that wasn't the reason I wanted to be in healthcare. And so I was like worried that I was going to have this bachelor's degree and then maybe I start med school and I don't like it. And, you know, I've done this work and it's not what I've expected. And I was like, I really want to come out of this 4 years with something that I feel like is where I want to go next, and not have endless things tacked onto it to be like, oh, well, now you have to apply to med school. And then now you have 4 years of med school, and that now you have residency. And another thing that worried me about that
Mm-hmm.
was like, what if I get a residency that's not even what I wanted? That I've done all this work and then I end up in some specialty that's like not what I planned to do.
Yeah.
And so I had a family reunion. It was my great grandmother's birthday, and we always have big birthdays for her. She just passed away about a year ago at 102. So we had big birthday parties for her every year. So this was like her 98th birthday party or something. And
Wow.
my great aunt, so my grandpa's sister, is a women's health nurse practitioner. And she also went to WSU, Spokane. And I was at my great grandmother's birthday, and she said, "Hey, like, I know you started college a couple months ago. How's it been going? Like, what are you thinking about?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm pre-med, but I'm not so sure about it." And she was like, and that was my pretty honest answer. And she was like, "Have you thought about being a nurse practitioner?" And I was like, "Not really." And she was like, "Well, you know, you could get a degree in nursing now, and then, you know, you have the option to go back to school to like advance your degree afterwards, or you'll have a great job after the 4 years." And I was like, you're really talking my language. This sounds a
Yeah.
lot more like what I want to do. And so I'm not kidding. I like got back to Pullman after that, and I was like, I need to speak to an advisor. Someone give me an advisor. I need to change things. Something went wrong.
Right away.
Yeah. So thankfully I switched it had only been like maybe 2 months since school had started to like switch my major, switch my track. But that was it. And I like did some research on, you know, like RN and P, like MDDO, like all the things. And I was like, this is definitely more my speed, is
Yeah.
becoming a nurse and having the option to go on further, but also having a wonderful degree license job at the end of this and feel like this is what I worked for. And so I switched to pre-nursing immediately. I had to retake some classes because I took like the wrong version of chem or like whatever. And then I applied and I didn't get in my first time. And that was
Oh.
really difficult, but I feel like everything happens for a reason. And I was able to take a semester off. My mom lives in California. I moved down to California for a semester and a summer, and I worked full time as a travel CNA. And kind of like beefed up my resume to reapply. And then I reapplied a semester later and got in. And after
Wow.
working more as a CNA. And so that was like, I think I was very discouraged with the first rejection. And I was like, why have I done all this? And then it was like everything was worth it once I got in. And it was really
Mm.
nice actually to take a semester off between like my prereqs and starting nursing school and working and just like getting a feel for that before I came back to nursing school. So, and then when I was in Pullman, got I spent a little extra time there and I got a minor in human development. That was something that
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on originally. And then I took this human development class my freshman year and I was like, this is really interesting actually. Like, and I also feel like it kind of helps make me a more well-rounded nurse.
Mm-hmm.
You get to think a lot about, I mean, in L&D, you're thinking about like childhood development, maternal development, you think about physical development, but then also like the social aspects. Because a lot of nursing is social too. Like we know a lot of science, but a
Yeah.
huge part of nursing, especially in like mom baby, labor and delivery, is like the family dynamics of all of these things and being able to
Mhm.
read the room and like help your patient where they're at.
I love that. And I love that you just kind of pick up this second. I mean, it feels like you just kind of pick up this piece along the way. You're like, oh, I want a minor in this. This
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
amazing. So that is awesome. And I another thing that popped in my brain as you're talking is like a dream delayed is not necessarily a dream unachieved, right?
Yeah.
Like as long as you don't give up or stop or whatever, you just go, ah, that's
Yes.
fine.
Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
I remember my mom, I was like so upset. And like my mom and my advisor, they both said very similar stuff, which was like, it really like changed something in me. Is I was
Hmm.
like, what if I'm reapplying and they see my name again and they know that I failed last time and they're going to think different of me and all this stuff. And they both kind of said, Kanoa, nobody is paying attention to you as much as you're paying attention to you. They do not care. Like it is, and not in a bad way, nobody's paying attention to you. But everybody's so focused on doing their own work that nobody's going to be thinking, oh, she tried and didn't get in the first time and now she's back again. Just do what you're doing and it's going to work out. Like,
Yeah.
and that really switched something in me to be like, nobody cares. Like, it's okay. It's okay for things to not go right. Nobody cares and it's going to work itself out and it's not the end of the world.
Mm. And what that brings to mind is, I love seeing these, every once in a while an article will pop up about, people who interview people at the end of life, right? Males, females, whatever, all the things. And, what's your greatest regrets? What are you most proud of? What do you wish you did more? All the things. And one of the number one things that consistently seems to come across that board is what you just said, is a lot of people will say, I wish I worried less
Yeah.
about what other people thought about me. And that I just love that you got to hear that early enough in life
Oh,
that you
yeah.
don't have to say that at the
And
end of life.
it was like it really changed something and it really, really changed my perspective at that time at that moment. And that is like something I have taken with me all the time. When things are not going my way, I'm like, nobody's paying attention. Nobody cares. I'm gonna do me. I'm gonna keep working on what I'm working on, and it's gonna be fine. Nobody is giving you a second glance. Everybody's thinking the same thing about themselves. So there's
Mm-hmm.
no reason.
Oh, well, okay, there it is, everybody. Kanoa's done. That's our episode. We have ended on the most inspirational part we could. We have already achieved. No. All right. Well, at the risk of cheapening this and moving along to the more practical, there's a few topics you want to talk about, and I'm not going to go the traditional manner. We're not going to, unless we double back and talk about nursing school or stuff like that. I just love the topics that you had lined up. You're like, hey, these are some things that are close to my heart and I want to talk about. So, I mean, let's just start with the obvious. So you were, Eastern Washington, bibbing and bobbing and moving around, and then Spokane, and you get your education, and then you move to New York City from Spokane.
Yes.
You're one of the first that I've had to got to talk to that made that choice. Why New York City? What made you go so far away from home?
Okay, so I had decided, so when I was in nursing school, I knew I wanted to do women's health. And I didn't know exactly what that meant. I was like, I don't know if that's like clinic, L&D, postpartum. Like, I was kind of trying to figure it out. The
Mhm.
longer nursing school went on, I was like, I think labor and delivery is where I want to be. But I was so anxious that I was going to get to my like L&D clinical and it was going to be like not what I've cracked it up to be. And now I have like no direction after this.
Mhm.
And so, third semester in, I had my labor and delivery clinical. I had the most beautiful delivery ever. It was like
Oh.
exactly what I was hoping for. And I was like, I like cry. I like almost started crying when the baby started crying. The patient was a nurse, so she like let me do a bunch of stuff. She was very like willing to let me, participate a lot more because every patient has a right to say I don't want a student. But
Yeah.
like when they're willing to really let you engage, it makes a difference. So I was like, this is it for sure. And then my aunt, like I said, is the women's health nurse practitioner. I had anticipated, being a nurse for 5 years maybe, and then I'll go back to school to be a women's health NP. My clinical instructor, Cindy, is a midwife, a certified nurse midwife. And so I had been talking to her and I was like, man, I love this. Like I'm so glad like this is what I wanted it to be. And I'm definitely feeling like it's coming to fruition, right? And
Mhm.
I was thinking about women's health NP. She was like, why have you not thought about certified nurse midwife? And I was like, well, that really hasn't come across my desk. So I don't know. And then I started kind of comparing those two and I was like, oh, like the the only minus with the women's health NP is you can't deliver. It's a lot of the same scope,
Mm.
but you do no deliveries. And I was like, I love deliveries. So I
Yeah.
was like, I was like, I think CNM is the next thing, like down the road. So the summer before I graduated, I went on a little trip with my aunt, my lovely travel buddy, and I came to Philadelphia and New York City and Boston to look
Oh.
more into midwife programs. There's not a ton of like in-person midwife programs around the West Coast. There's a lot over on the East Coast. And so that was supposed to be my epiphany of like where I go next after school to be
Yeah.
like, these are the things I'm looking at. I'm not planning on going back to school immediately, but I think it'd be good for me to move there, kind of like get the feel of things. And if I don't like it, I can always come home. Like, we'll see what happens, right? And so I went to Philly, I went to New York, and then I went to Boston. Boston was more for fun, less for school. And Philly, I liked the school a lot better in Philly, more than the school in New York, but New York is New York, like nothing compared.
Yep.
And so I was like, I felt like more conflicted than an epiphany, which I had hoped I would, come at the end of it. I was
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know. So I was like, it's kind of in limbo. I finished nursing school and then I started applying for jobs and I was applying for jobs in both places and I wasn't trying to, but I was definitely applying to more jobs in New York than in I was kind of gravitating towards that. And so I was like, well,
It,
I'll just apply in both places and we'll see what sticks. Like, whatever sticks is where we'll go. But we're definitely going to throw more stuff at the wall in New York and
yeah.
less stuff in Philly.
And by both
Um,
places, you mean Philly and New York, right?
yeah,
Like, at no time are you considering I'm staying home, Eastern
no,
Washington or whatever. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
There was a moment of bleak time, maybe a month or two after graduation, because where I was like, I'm not hearing anything back.
Yeah.
That was another thing. Oh, that was another thing I want to talk about is transferring my license was like one of the worst parts basically is that it was a lot faster to take my NCLEX in the state that I went to school in. So my
Okay.
options were either pay twice basically, which is what I ended up doing, to get my Washington license and then once you have that license, do the paperwork to transfer it to New York
Mm-hmm.
or do the paperwork to transfer it to New York and then take my NCLEX after all the paperwork had been done and they approved me to test.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
and that could have taken months.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I can't wait that long. I'm just gonna pay and have both licenses because it was able to let me take my NCLEX in January as opposed to what would have been like March. but it was slow going because I didn't have an active New York license. Like they say it takes 6 to 8 weeks for New York specifically. It took like 1 day short of 8 weeks for my license to get approved from the day I submitted it. And they tell you don't even email them. You're going to slow them down with an email. Don't check in. Don't say hello. Put in all the paperwork and be gone.
And be patient.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was difficult, applying for jobs every day, all day, every day. And then every application said, do you have an active New York State license? And I had to say no on every one. But then, thank goodness I have my job now. I was finally able to say yes. And it was basically one of the first jobs that I said, yes, I have an active license. And they were like, here you go. We've got a job for you. The plan now, I love my job, is to stay being a labor and delivery nurse for the next 3 to 5 years and then try to go back to school to be a nurse midwife. Hopefully in Philly. Move to Philly and go. I really liked that school. So hopefully a little down the road, there will be a move to Philly. But I love New York and I'm going to stay here for...
I love that you have the, like, you know what I mean? Like, that you have the freedom to do this, and B, you're like, I'm going to take advantage of this. Like, you will be able to say, I lived in New York for X number of years. I've practiced as a nurse in New York, and then you're going to go learn in Philly. You're going to probably practice a bit in Philly. You know what I mean? Like, the world is your oyster, basically, at this point.
And that was the thing, too, was I have family in Washington. I have family in Spokane, and I love my family, obviously. But I was like, home is always going to be home. And like, if this isn't what I think it is, home will be here. Spokane will be here. And I'm okay with that. And I can try this out for a year or two and then say this isn't for me, or which so far it has been for me and I love it here. So.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. See, now this is a perfect opportunity. I'm a homeboy, right? Like Washington, born and bred, grew up on the west side and have lived for the second half of my life on the east side. Was born over here, though. Sadly, not at Sacred Heart, but a deaconess. I'm assuming that the care was impeccable regardless of where you're born. Point of the matter is that at the risk of, irritating my fellow Spokanites, the one thing that I have against the city of Spokane is the lack of diversity. And obviously, you've moved from Spokane to a beautiful New York City. I mean, if there's any potential poster city for diversity, I would assume that would be it. And so with that being said, I understand that another topic very near and dear to your heart is DEI. And I know that that's a hot button topic in these current political times, and I'm avoiding that part of it because that's not what this discussion is for. But what do you want to share as far as DEI is concerned and how it relates to nursing?
Yes. I'm honestly, a big consideration for moving as well was being with a more diverse patient population. I love Spokane. Spokane is my hometown. But sometimes it's really, really difficult to be taking care of the same type of person all the time. And a lot of, I don't want to make this super political, but a lot of the same political views and not a lot of diversity in thought in that way either. And sometimes it makes it really hard. And that was like a big consideration for me also, was like when I'm like, I graduated nursing school there, so I learned to be a nurse there, but I was like, I really want to dig my feet into patients of all different kinds, all different races, all different socioeconomic statuses, like all different kinds, to really be able to meet them where they're at. And that's what I think of when I think of DEI. I think of having nurses that are able to provide like culturally competent care, and having Latino nurses, having Black nurses, having those types of people, so that when your patients are a minority like that, they can see themselves in you. And, I'm a quarter Filipino. My grandma's from the Philippines. I definitely don't look, I'm white, and that I know that. But that's another really important part, is like being vocal enough that your patients can see like an ally in you and can see that you're trying to be their champion, that you are being the vessel to advocate for them. And that is one of the biggest things that I have encountered in my nursing career so far, is like so many different types of patients, so many different walks of life, and it makes you a better nurse. It really gives you a lot to grapple with, and it makes you have more difficult conversations with your patients, therapeutic conversations, but conversations about their care, of things that aren't like comfortable dinner table topics, especially with labor and delivery. But I think I want I have it here actually, my little award. When I graduated, I got the Inclusive Excellence Award, and it was nominated by my peers. And one of the note that I got, that one of my classmates had wrote, was that anybody would find a friend in Kanoa. Anybody of any type would be able to find a friend in Kanoa. And that is what I want all nurses to be. Not just me, I want everybody. I want their patients to be able to find a friend in their nurse. Of any, I worked, when I was in Sacred Heart, I also worked in the Psych ED for a little while when I was a nurse tech. And that was really, really good for me, I felt, to be really good at therapeutic communication and to be able to empathize with them. Like, they're going through a really tough time. And Spokane, we, the bad way, we're known for having a lot of drug problems, like street drug use, a lot of eat, sleep, console babies that I remember. And that doesn't happen as much here. And I didn't realize that was a problem so much in Washington and not here. I was surprised when I came here to the biggest city in America, and there's not as many people on drugs as there are like back home. And so I think if it's one thing I would say, it's try and be someone that your patients can find a friend in. Even if you don't see eye to eye on things, on many things, you are there. It's okay to not have the same beliefs as every person you're coming into contact with. That's important, that we have diversity of beliefs and thoughts, but be someone that they can find a friend in, and that you can be their listening ear, and you can be an advocate for them no matter what.
I cannot tell you how much I love that. And I think you have really spoken that very eloquently. It does, obviously, one of the big, and I don't, again, not trying to get into any whatever, one of the more challenging areas that this gets into pertains to religion, right? Beliefs as far as like where you go after you die, beliefs in a supreme being, a god, a goddess, multiple gods, whatever the case may be, or no god at all. And so where I'm going with this is there was an author by the name of Jeff Chu. And even just talking about this will be, controversial to some. But Jeff Chu has a book titled, "Does Jesus Really Love Me?" And he's a journalist. And in this book, his mission was to go and the subtitle was "A Gay Christian's Pilgrimage in Search of God in America." And he went with an open mind, open heart, and went to talk to multiple pastors, mega churches, small churches, different towns, different cities, different states, and just trying to get this cross-cultural snapshot of what Christianity looked like in America. And, there's the whole homosexuality and everything that goes with that. But what I loved, and one of the number one things I took away from the book, was this. I think it was a mega church pastor, and I believe it was in Texas, but he was quoted as saying something along the lines of, because he's firm believer, believes in Jesus, believes in welcoming, others to his church regardless of sexuality and that sort of thing, but very much a believer in traditional biblical beliefs. And yet he was quoted as saying, Jeff, I have to say, we're right until we're not. We think we're right. And we have to always understand that we may be wrong. And for a Christian, let alone a pastor, a head pastor, to say something along those lines, to some is viewed as being very sacrilegious, right? How dare you? Like, no, the Bible says, and da-da-da. And I have a few different lifetimes, and not meaning that I've lived multiple lives, but in my almost 50 years on this earth, I've gone through different phases when it comes to beliefs and all the things, always very welcoming and all that. But I don't know. I think over the years, my faith has evolved, changed, matured, and looks different than it did. The one thing I can definitively say is it looks different than it did, say 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago. And part of that's life experience. And the other part of that is our job, our profession. When you go in and you're taking care of someone, like you said, we don't have to believe the same. You may be an atheist. You may believe in, multiple gods. I don't know. But that doesn't, and nor should it, stop me from giving you the best care I can possibly give you.
Exactly.
And I would expect the same of a nurse like you or someone else who's taking care of me. When I'm a patient, I would hope that you would see past whatever perceptions you have of me and take care of me as a human being. And I think that we all deserve that of each other. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's such a great. You're right that like a lot of people would think that's controversial that pastor said that, but I think it's very empathetic to be perceptive of lots of other worldviews, to say, this is what I've held to be true, but like, I don't know. We don't know.
Well, and it's the same is true in healthcare and medicine, right? We are right until we're not. Exactly. And like, you know what I mean? You've got a headache.
With the information we have.
Yeah. Hey, you've got a headache. Come on into my clinic. Let's drill a hole in the side of your head and let the bad spirits out. Yes. I mean, that's what we used to do. And so, we found out somewhere along the way that did not work, nor was it the best practice in any way, shape, or form. So we got to always be open. So thank you for opening the door to that conversation, to be perfectly honest. That being said, you touched on it. I don't know if you talked on it to the fullest extent that you wanted to, but the other topic you wanted to talk about was meeting your patient population where they're at. What does that look like practically? Was there more you wanted to share?
I think a lot of it is being able to assess kind of where their knowledge is at the start of something, at the start of your interaction, and assess where their knowledge is, assess what they want to know, kind of what they're willing to accept, what they're ready to hear. And then in that, diversity talk of saying, this is where my patient might need some more resources. Maybe my patient's on food stamps. Maybe my patient lives with multiple family members in a small apartment. Like maybe these are the things that you can kind of talk to your patient more about and then say, here, let me give you a resource for this. Let me give you a resource for applying for food stamps now that you have a baby and you're eligible for WIC. And I have a very diverse patient population at my hospital. It's near both a very, very wealthy neighborhood and then a very underprivileged neighborhood. And I get patients like on every end of the spectrum. And so sometimes it's the patients that are very well off. They work corporate jobs in Manhattan and they live in the suburbs and they have a white house and the picket fence and they're fine. And I mean, even then I'm providing them the information. I'm not giving them these extra resources that my other patients might need. But also I think meeting them where they're at and giving really informed consent so that they really understand what's going on. What I like to do, like when I'm admitting a patient, say for like they're getting induced, I ask them, I like to start the conversation by saying, what do you know about induction? What did you and your doctor talk about at the office about induction? When they said, hey, I think you should be induced, what do you know about it? And I want to like see where their baseline is, because I don't want to come at them with 8 million things of information. It's really overstimulating. Tell me what you know, and we'll go from there. And then from then, I think we can build a lot better rapport and they trust me a lot more if they know that I'm actively listening to them and I explain things in a way that they can understand of like what the next steps are. Like you can refuse anything, that's your right, but we are going to explain to you the risks and the benefits and why we recommend this thing. It's all up to you. You can decide what you want. That doesn't mean I'm not going to tell you why I think you should do it or like what the next steps would be. But this is all of the information so you feel like you're making a decision and you are making a decision based on a larger picture, versus I feel like a lot of patients, they feel like they're very strong in their decision and they feel very confident about an answer where they have a pinhole of information. And maybe I would make the same decision if I also had a pinhole of information. But now that I'm giving you this broad a huge wide world of information, your answer might change. Your
Yep.
decision might change because you're getting a lot more to make that decision based off of. So knowing where they are, like in a social sense, do they have family support? How old are they? It's like these, I mean, these are topics that are kind of more specific to like labor and delivery postpartum and stuff, but like a lot of that goes into what it's going to be like for them moving forward. A mom that's 35 and it's her fourth kid versus a 22-year-old first time mom, those I'm going to treat very differently. Not in a bad way. Different people need different things. And I don't think the 34-year-old fourth baby would appreciate me treating her the same way I would a 22-year-old first time mom. The needs are different. And so giving them as much information as possible in a way that makes sense. And then also at the start of my shift, I like to talk to them about things that might happen. And I say, I'm not saying this is going to happen in any way, but I'm telling you these are possibilities so that if this happens, you don't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. And it's a whirlwind of things and you're confused and nobody's telling you anything. And so I like to kind of set the boundary, or not the boundary, but set the expectation at the beginning of my shift to be like, this is what I'm here to do. This is the plan. We can make alterations to that plan. I'm going to tell you what we're doing every step of the way. And I want you to feel empowered with the information you have to make the decisions that are best for you.
Incredible. And Kanoa, because we're not avoiding the controversial topics, you mentioned this pinhole of information that we might be operating from, and that's true of anybody in any aspect of life. And yet, even more poignant in this modern day, because we have something that we didn't have decades ago, being social media, right? And so if maybe that's the pinhole of information that we're getting, or the pinhole that we're getting our information from. And that is, as best as I can tell, the last topic you definitely wanted to cover. So what'd you want to share about that?
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Well, never mind. This is going to be all episode 2. It's just her going off about...
I was really excited to talk about this because I think it's very important, but I do think it's difficult. And it's difficult to talk to with your patients because they feel like you are thinking they're less intelligent or things like that. And like sometimes it's an insult. And I never mean it as an insult. I tell them, I don't come here to ruin your day. I don't come here to ruin your plan. Why would I do that? This is a lot of work. I have put in a lot of work to go to nursing school, to get a degree, to get a license, to get this job. Then why would I come in here to ruin your vibe? Why would I do that? And I like try and say it like jokingly, but it's true. Like this is like my passion. And it would be crazy for me to have done all this to just try and ruin your birth plan and ruin these expectations you have of XYZ, right? The pinhole of information, I feel like a lot of patients are getting a lot of information off of social media these days, which it's unavoidable. You're going to see things, especially pregnant moms. It's like your feed knows you're pregnant. It's giving you all of these birth stories and all of these nightmares. And I had an emergency C-section and I had this and I had this and all of these crazy things that patients are seeing, whether they're searching for it or not. And I really, really want to emphasize that seeing those things on your social media, you should have a conversation with your provider about it. You should have a conversation with your doctor at your next OB visit. You should have a conversation with your midwife. You should have a conversation with your labor nurse when you get to L&D. You should have a conversation with your postpartum nurse when you get to postpartum. These people, me, Eric, I'm going to say broad strokes here, but basically every nurse and doctor came here and went to a lot of schooling and a lot of trouble and has a lot of knowledge about these things to try and help you. And I have seen like an alarming amount of patients refusing the vitamin K for their babies, which really, really worries me. They have all this information going around about black box warning this and people have died this and I've heard patients say, well, people have been having babies for hundreds of years and everything was fine. Everything was not fine. Everything was not fine. Infants were dying at like a 30% mortality rate. Like things were bad. And I am grateful for modern medicine. And the information we are trying to give you here is very studied. Like we have a lot of knowledge, we have a lot of work and time and effort that goes into providing you this care. And I know that seeing that stuff on social media makes you feel like you know a lot. I feel like it's also similar. Have you heard of like the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Mm-hmm.
Like
But explain, for the benefit of everyone, explain what that is.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is like this human response to knowledge, where when you learn a little bit, you feel like you know a ton about it. You haven't learned that much. At the beginning of your learning about some topic, you feel like you know everything that there is to know about it. And then the further on you get into the knowledge, the less you realize you know. You realize how expansive the topic is. And I feel like that happens to a lot of patients about everything.
Yeah.
But in my case specifically, like labor, postpartum, nursery stuff, I saw this on TikTok. I know 2 snippets of information. And also, people sharing stuff on TikTok, they're sharing what they want to share. So there's plenty of missing information about their birth story and these things that happen. And so you're seeing what you want to see, or what your algorithm is feeding you. You're seeing what that person decided they were comfortable sharing, which is probably not everything. And you feel like, I know everything there is to know about everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's compounded by, because like you said, that algorithm feeding you, it's compounded by seeing multiple different people saying the same thing, each of them potentially leaving out part of the story, but it's still derived to give you that narrow piece of information. And so I love that you wanted to bring that up. And something that occurred to me as you're talking is, we just talked about how I would hope most of us healthcare providers are striving to be open-minded, right? You know what you know. We know we're right until we're not. And so hopefully we're open-minded to change our paradigms, change the way we think when we are confronted with things that go, oh, turns out I wasn't right about, you know what I mean? The world doesn't, revolve around me. It's that whole thing goes where we thought we revolved, or the sun revolved around us. Oh, turns out not true. And yet, he's branded as a heretic for saying it. But the point is, hopefully we're doing our part to do that. And as patients, please, dear God, return that in kind. You know what I mean? Like, be open-minded, allow us to give information. And again, if I give my patient the information that we know and what we think to be true currently based on studies and things of that, and you still decide, no, thank you, I don't want to stop smoking. No, thank you, I don't want to whatever. Then right on, let's talk about something else. You know what I mean? Like, how else can we better your health? And because just because you, and there's that, we're not even getting to the topic of, we may know something to be true and yet are uncomfortable in applying it in our own lives. And so, I'm like, oh man, I know this is bad for me, but I don't care. It really tastes good, and I'm going to keep eating it until I'm ready to stop eating it. I don't know, as one example. So, Kanoa, oh my gosh, I just love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this. Is there anything that I did not pick up on that you definitely wanted to share before we close in our traditional manner?
No, I don't think so. I think my last final thought on that subject is just know that we are trying to give you the most information possible for you to make a educated decision on whatever that decision may be in your health. And it is your right to decline things. It is absolutely within your bounds to say, I'm not interested in that. I don't want that. But like you said, Eric, try and be kind when we're giving you the information. Like, I am doing my best here. And it's okay if you don't want that. But it is also my responsibility to say that I have done my best to educate you about the risks and benefits of this decision, and that you were aware of those risks and benefits when you made the decision that you did. And it is okay for you to say, I don't want to do that. That is completely acceptable. And I'm not going to think any less of you as a patient. I'm not going to think anything about it. I just need to have done my due diligence of saying, this is information you might not have at your current point in time. Let me try and give you all this information, and then make your decision.
Kanoa, it's simple logic as best as my brain is computing right now, and that is you have fact A, which is we're never all going to agree on everything. We're just all too diverse and come from too many different backgrounds, even if we're all raised by the same two people. If everyone on the planet was raised by the same two people.
Yes.
Because I know this to be true. I got 4 kids, and they all have different beliefs, and they were raised by the same two people. So, if it stands to reason that we are definitely going to disagree on things, let's at least do it respectfully. And let's stay open-minded, listen, change the paradigm if you feel like you can and or will at that time. And if not, tuck it in the back of your brain, because you might hear it again. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Kanoa! Oh my gosh. So you chose 3 words to describe nursing school. What were they, and why did you pick them?
Okay. They were perseverance. Oh my gosh. Let's see. What did I pick? Difficult, perseverance, and lifelong. Okay. Difficult, I think, speaks for itself. Nursing school was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. Like, the hardest thing I've ever done. Getting into nursing school, hard. Nursing school, harder. It challenges you in every way. And then that kind of leads into perseverance is, every day waking up, getting ready to go, having a clinical day where you're up at 4 a.m, and then having a 2-hour-long exam the next day. And then you have a hands-on Foley and rectal tube assessment that it's the most ridiculous thing you can imagine, and it takes a lot of strength and perseverance. And I think me, but also everybody I went to nursing school with, I watched them get stronger as a person throughout the 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then lifelong, I have made lifelong friends in nursing school. Despite me being across the country, I still talk to my friends from nursing school basically every day, all the time, constantly. And you have gone through something that such a fraction of people in the world have done, and you did it together. And you were there in the pits together after a tough med-surg exam, and then you were there after a great clinical day where you got to do all these skills that you'd never done before. You were there through the highs and lows with all of these people. And I think that bonds you in a way that it's really difficult to compare anything else to, because nursing school is hard. And I don't know if you could pay me to go to nursing school again. I mean, but it was hard. But lifelong friends, it takes a lot of perseverance. It's so hard, but it is so worth it. The job that I get to do, I love my job. I get to come into work every day, and I love my coworkers. I love L&D. I love bringing babies into the world. I love being part of someone's one of the biggest days of their life, and getting to help them create the experience they want. And so no matter how difficult it was, I came out of it on the other side, and I'm so much better for it. And I have these wonderful connections, and I get to live my dream and do my dream job.
Very well said. Very well said, friend. Well, you have one piece of advice. You've given much, but you have one piece of advice for someone listening to carry with them the rest of their lives. What is that piece of advice?
My one piece of advice would be try and enter every interaction with empathy and kindness. As a nurse, as a patient, outside of any of that, as a person. Try and enter your interactions with people, giving them the benefit of the doubt, trying to be kind, coming from a place of warmth. And I think all of the things are going to go better than if you were not doing that. And it helps you, it helps the person you're interacting with. I think everything in life could be better if everyone was a little bit more empathetic and kind.
And I think that sums up perfectly what we've been talking about for the last nearly an hour. So,
yes.
Kanoa, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to just wax eloquent, my friend. Thank you, thank you.
I had the most lovely time.
Here's what's happening on the next episode of Feeding Our Young.
Yes, in fact, just last year, I got my private pilot's license. That was a huge undertaking. I was 55 years old when I finally got my license to fly. And so there was a local flight school here in Sarasota, and I would show up for my flight lessons, and every other student nearly across the board was in their early 20s. I knew I wanted to fly the very first time I ever was up in a small airplane at 14, but at 14, no one told me that I could be a pilot. Nobody was sharing that information like, this could be a career for you. Maybe you should look at the Air Force. That was never an option that was put in front of me, and it just didn't occur to me. So it was many, many years later before I took my first, what's called an introductory flight or discovery flight. And that discovery flight was 15 years ago. So from that discovery flight, when I finally committed, yes, I'm going to go do this, it was 15 years of start again, stop again, kids going to college, moving across country, getting a couple more advanced degrees. So lots of interruptions. And I was fortunate to have a husband in the background continuing to encourage me, because at times when a goal stretches on so long, you can start to talk yourself out of it and say, well, maybe I don't really want it after all. Maybe my values and goals have changed. But I knew that that was just me kind of being hesitant. Fear of failure, really. And what's crazy to me, with 3 advanced degrees in nursing and, having done really hard things across my career, having learned really hard things, learning to fly a little airplane is one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Did you like today's episode of Feeding Our Young? Want to know more about the Feeding Our Young movement? Check out our website at feedingouryoung.org. Would you like to be featured on a future episode? Maybe have Eric bring his unique brand of encouragement to your nursing students or nurses? Please text us at 509-666-5636 or email us at info@feedingouryoung.org. We're so excited to have you return to hear our next honored guest. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Feeding Our Young LLC. Again, that's username Feeding Our Young LLC. Until next time, be encouraged and go find someone to encourage today.